Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hudson's Highlights. What we do here on my channel is we discuss movies and TV shows and things within that space. I mentioned this in my last episode, but in case you missed it, I have changed the name moving forward from Tracy's Takes to Hudson's Highlights. Just a few um, reasons. Number one being is that the algorithm sets up on YouTube to where if you type in Tracy's Takes or Tracy's Take or anything, any variation of that, you may find a few different YouTube channels. But Hudson's Highlights was not taken. It is a little more catchy. And once we get a few of these episodes up with that label, you should be able to go straight to Hudson's Highlights and find my content. Today, what we're going to talk about is Venom The Last Dance. Excuse me. The reason why I decided to go with Venom: The Last Dance, I was gonna do this tomorrow, but because I did mention this yesterday, Daredevil: Born Again dropped pretty late tonight. It's about an hour per episode, and they dropped two episodes back to back from 9 p.m. Eastern time to about 11. That was gonna have me up a little late trying to record a video. So I decided to do it in reverse, and I'm gonna do Venom: The Last Dance tonight, and then I will drop my full spoiler review of the first two episodes of Daredevil: Born Again tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. That will drop on my channel tomorrow. But with that down, so I watched Venom: The Last Dance. I did not watch it in theaters because honestly, the reviews weren't great, and I felt like Venom: Let There Be Carnage was a significant step down from the first Venom movie. So I felt like if there was an even further step down in the Venom: The Last Dance, which is what they call this movie, then I might just want to wait for streaming, which is what I did. I did take the time to watch it tonight. This will be my open spoiler review about that movie. If you have not checked it out, it is on Netflix. So give it a shot if you are interested. So Venom: The Last Dance was the third installment of this Venom franchise. I almost loved the first one. Like the second one, the jury's still out for the third. I just watched it, so I'm a little bit biased at the moment because it's still fresh in my mind. But I will lead with the things that I thought they could have improved on. So at the beginning of the movie, Venom is controlling Eddie pretty heavy at the start. It's not as pronounced in the other two movies. There's usually a pretty decent interplay between where Venom is in control and where Eddie is in control, and then even a buddy cop kind of fight about who has control over the body at what time. They lean into the silly in this one a little bit more than I liked, and the way they did that was they had Venom be more in control in those silly moments in the movie. The dialogue seemed pretty phoned in, especially with a few of the B characters. It just looked like maybe it was the direction they were given, but there was some really phoned in scenes, especially with some of the actors that I know from other movies, and I felt like they've given better performances in other movies, so I'm not sure what the problem was with this movie. Another big thing that I noticed pretty early on in the movie is that they completely ignored the first movie's research. If you remember in the first Venom movie, they had like a whole lab dedicated to studying the symbiotes and understanding the symbiotes, and how it was hard for a symbiote to essentially become symbiotic with a human without us killing them. And Eddie Brock being one of the human hosts that was compatible with the symbiosis. And it just seems like in this movie they kind of threw that out just for the plot. Didn't really kill the movie for me, but it was something that I noticed for sure. One thing for sure that they did that I thought was, maybe I don't know if this was Marvel making them do this, but in Venom, I think it was Let There Be Carnage was the post credit scene where you see Eddie Brock at the bar, and through some tropes, he kind of cuts into a different multiverse. He ends up in our 616 multiverse with or universe with Peter Parker on the screen. A few moments later, there is a piece of him left behind out on the bar. They completely retcon that. I won't get into how they did it, but basically, that scene based on this movie's history didn't exist, which I thought was silly. But I mean, I get it if Marvel stepped in and said, "No, we're not doing this." But otherwise, I just don't see the point of them cutting that into the movie. There were some pretty cool scenes, though. One of them you've seen in the trailer, the scene where Eddie Brock asks Venom how fast can he make the horse run without killing it. That scene was pretty cool just to see that full scene cut. That was a pretty cool scene. There is a river scene that's pretty action packed where the military is essentially trying to separate Eddie Brock from Venom because they realize that the Keystone, I think they call it, uh, it only exists if both of those entities are alive together. And they decide that, well, to prevent Noel, who's the big bad in this movie, who you really don't see, but he is the big bad in the movie, they decide, what we're going to do? We're going to just kill one of them. And the best way to do that is to separate them, obviously, because you don't want Venom and Eddie working together to prevent their death. Overall, the movie's not horrible. The action scenes almost save it. They really do. The action scenes, especially the ending, which I'll get to in a second, but the action almost saves the dialogue. The action almost saves the cheesiness. And then they make this choice with Mrs. Chen. Uh, you see this in the trailer. Eddie and Venom end up at a casino. He's gambling. The last little bit of money they have away. And then, for whatever reason, Miss Chen happens to be in Vegas in the exact same casino within a hot dog stir from where they're gambling, and they pop up and see her. It felt like that was just shoehorned in just to have Mrs. Chen in the third movie. There was this really cheesy dance move or dance off you see that's in the trailer that really puts Eddie and Venom at risk, which kind of undercuts what Venom was saying before and how nervous Venom was that they were being pursued if he so haphazardly would just cut to dance. And you find out earlier in the movie that the only way these things that are chasing them can see them is if they are in full Venom form. Venom has control. He's, the big cool Venom is everywhere. Look, the fact that he made that choice just to have a dance scene with Mrs. Chen was really dumb. And that's what I meant when I said like the action scenes almost saved the movie, and then you get something like that, and it's like, come on, you were almost there. But anyway, the getting back to the final scene, not the final, but the final fight, the big fight of the movie, third act fight of the movie, climactic fight of the movie, if you will say. That fight scene was kind of epic. It was nice. It was nice to see that many symbiotes. It was really cool that they made it in that short amount of time. They made it very abundantly clear how important Eddie Brock and Venom were to not just themselves, but to other symbiotes to make sure Noel doesn't get free. And the fact that they're sacrificing themselves to give Venom and Eddie a chance. And that was really cool. You get to see a few of the different symbiotes moves. You get to see some interplay between the symbiotes and the humans, and the symbiotes really trying to explain to them, like, hey, listen, if you think we're the bad guys here, we're not. We're trying to help. The guy who's trying to come here is the bad guy. We should be working together to stop that. That was really, really, really cool. Um, like I said, that last fight scene was all the fight scenes, really. The last fight scene, really, in the movie, it almost makes you forget how cheesy the movie is. Almost. If they had a little bit more in there, I would say you probably could just get over how cheesy the dialogue is just to get to the scenes where the action tells a story. Almost. Almost. Uh, really cool, really sad scenes at the end between Eddie and Venom when them basically figuring out together that this may be their last hurrah. Like the enemy they're facing now is beyond anything they can control, and this may end up being a sacrificial story for them. Really, really heart heartstrings pulling moments in that part of the movie. Like I said, man, the movie, if they could have kept that pace they had in the third act throughout Act One and Two, would have been a solid conclusion of the story. But it felt like they just kind of pieced some things together in Act One and Two just to get us to Act Three, which was worth it. Act Three was spectacular, but I can't help but be reminded that this had the makings of a good movie, and they just really didn't have the first two acts, at least in my opinion, written out that well. But the conclusion was good. The conclusion was good. There was two post-credit scenes. Excuse me. The first one just basically showed Noel and his anger with the fact that his minions failed the mission. The second one was interesting, and it's interesting for two parts. The second post credit scene kind of alluded to a cockroach that looked like it may have had the Venom symbiote in it. What makes that interesting is Venom does say at the end of the movie, before the post credit scenes roll and you see his sacrifice, that this isn't goodbye, it's just goodbye for now. Which makes you think that at some point there could be a reunion between Eddie Brock and Venom. Um, the other part that makes it interesting is since the movie has come out and with the lackluster performance of Carnage in theaters, not Carnage, I'm sorry, Craven the Hunter in theaters, Sony has basically come out and said, "Hey, listen, we're gonna take a break here. We're not done making these movies, but we're gonna pause, take a breath, go back to the drawing board, and see if we can put a little more quality into these films," which I appreciate. So I wonder if they'll go back to Eddie Brock in some form and kind of use that cockroach story, like you can't kill a cockroach with a bomb type thing. You know, the old mantra, even a nuke wouldn't kill a cockroach. So I wonder if they'll go back to that. I'll be interested either way. I think out of all the Sony verse movies they've made, even with this lackluster performance in Act One and Two of this movie, the Venom version of the Sony verse, at least to me, were appealing. I love the first one, liked the second one. This third one was okay. Like I said, the third act was probably the best part of the movie, but almost saved it. So they put some effort into that third act. But as I mentioned earlier in the onset, I will be doing a full spoiler review of Daredevil Born Again, episode 1 and 2. That's going to drop on my channel tomorrow. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys tomorrow for that installment of Daredevil Born Again. Thank you for sticking around with me for this episode, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.